Hey guys, so first of all, I want to apologize for not being around for the past 2 weeks. I've had a lot of stuff going on, plus school, getting robbed, almost getting mugged. Yeah, it's been fun. This week we're talking about our coming out stories. Mine can be a little lengthy, so I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, but I'm really going to give you just the details, like the main points. I decided to come out when I was 14, the summer of 2004, which was the summer before my freshman year in high school. I told two people, and it spread like wildfire. I grew up in a town that was really, really small, very religious, definitely in the Bible Belt. So, of course, everybody knew about it. Um, I also went to a high school of about 900 students. I was the only openly gay student, so it was extremely difficult at first to deal with. I dealt with a lot of persecution. I dealt with a lot of people that were extremely rude to me, people knocking books out of my hands, people hitting me, people, shoving me into lockers, shoving me into walls, writing on my locker, vandalizing my stuff, taking my things, leaving me death threats and, like notes that they would put in my locker, leaving me death threats. It was really bad. I grew up in a really country, rural, I can't even fucking say it. Rural. 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 Anyhow, I grew up in a very small area, basically, where everyone was farmers. So, needless to say, people were not used to seeing an openly gay person. uh, Around October, things started to take a turn for the worst. People were really rude. Well, I mean, people were always really rude, but people were extremely rude, and just said things, called me faggot going down the hallway, queer. I actually sang for the basketball games and the football games. I sang the national anthem a lot, and I mean, I can remember countless times that I would get up to sing, and I would hear someone in the crowd say faggot or queer or something like that. So it was something that I got used to. Well, October 29th, 2004, I had a teacher that confronted me about one of the other students saying that I had attempted suicide or that I was planning to attempt suicide. So, sorry, I want to make sure my door was locked. So she confronted me about it, and I told her that it was true that I had attempted suicide, which it really wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I mean, I had attempted it, but it was just one of those things where, like, I knew I wasn't going to go through with it. I just was so frustrated that there was no other way out. I was going to kill myself. So I told her that, and of course, she tells the administration, and by law, they have to tell your parents. And so that morning of October 29th, around 10:30 a.m., I was called to the office. I talked to the counselor. He asked me if it was true. I told him it was. Totally should have lied, but that's never a good option. So, needless to say, he calls my mom. Both my parents worked at the school. They're both teachers. He calls my mom. She comes up to the office, and she's kind of teary-eyed. She's kind of upset about it. And she asked me, she's like, is this true? And I was like, yeah. So then she and I both kind of started crying. Well, the counselor actually gets up and leaves the room because he was like, I'm going to give you the room to yourself so you can talk. So I'm sitting in a chair up against the wall. The desk is in front of me, so she pulls his chair around in front of me. And she looked at me and she kind of put her hand on my knee and she said, why would you do this? And I was just crying, so I didn't say anything. And so she asked me again and she said, I'm going to ask you something, and if the answer is yes, I'm still going to love you. Are you gay? The only thing I could even muster to say was, I'm bisexual. I told her I was bisexual to begin with. Like, I thought it might be an easier process because there's still that 50% chance that I would live a normal life. So I lied. After that, she kind of scooted back and she just repeated it and she said bisexual. Like, she was trying to get used to the word or something. And so then this is where it gets bad, because then she turns around and she walks to the behind the desk and she picks up the phone, and I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm calling your dad. And so then she calls my dad and she's on the phone with him and she's like, you need to come up here to Mr. Cripps's office, da 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 da. He's like, why? What's going on? She won't tell him. And so finally she says, Chase thinks he's gay. Her exact words. Chase thinks he's gay. And so there was nothing else said and she hung up. So he came up there. I mean, my stomach wasn't. I was just nodding. I felt like I was dying. So he comes up there and he puts his hand. I mean, he comes through the door, and my dad has that look that I can tell when he's aggravated. I can tell when he's upset about something. And he had that look in his face, like that he was going to murder me. And he put his hand on the corner of the desk, and he looked at me and he said, "So, who's your boyfriend?" I didn't even say anything. I just cried. I just cried. And so he walks around to the desk and he sits down in the chair and he was like, "So what do you think about guys?" He's like, does getting a dick shoved up your ass, does that turn you on? Da, da, da. And I'm sorry for my French, but I'm just quoting him, telling you what he said. Said just really, really rude things to me. Really made me feel belittled. Made me feel like less of a person. And so he, continued his charade and asked all these questions and was asking, "So what do you think about guys? Do you think about guys when you masturbate? What turns you on about them? Da 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 da," all this stuff. My mother was not saying a word. I was sitting here just bawling. Like, I had the ugly cry. I was like I couldn't even breathe. So, needless to say, after that ended, I say needless to say a lot. I've realized that. But anyhow, needless to say. After that ended, he looked at my mom and he was like, "Take him home." And I was like, "No, I want to stay." So I stayed. Got back to my algebra class, and it was I kid you not, like there was tension in the room, and it was like as soon as I walked in, everyone knew because the teacher stopped teaching. And she just went and sat down, and people just kind of looked at me. And I remember one girl, her name was Whitney, she kind of looked at me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And I was still crying. So they knew something was wrong. And the teacher didn't even teach for the rest of the class period. There were only like 30 minutes left in the class, but she didn't even teach. And so, the kids were just asking about me. So, I mean, the rest of that day was just awful. When we left school, we were going home, and my mother didn't say a word to me. My little sister, bless her heart, she didn't know what was going on. When we got home, it was like the whole world stopped. Like, my dad told me he was going to send me away to a treatment facility rehabilitation center in California that's called Exodus. If you don't know of Exodus, look it up. Don't ever go because it's terrible. From what I've been told, he was going to send me there. He was threatening to pull me out of school. Sorry, I'm in front of a mirror and I have something in my eye. Anyhow, he was threatening to pull me out of school and to send me to these things, and it was just really bad. Again, needless to say, for the next year, was just pure hell. Every time we would have a conversation, it was about that. Every time we sat down at the dinner table, my mom would cry, my dad would get mad. I would just sit there because it was awkward. There was nothing else going on in the household except the fact that I was gay. I was the center of attention for the house, for the family, and I hated it. My two sisters, my oldest sister, my younger sister, both had things going on. It wasn't even addressed because of the fact that it was the big thing here. My parents thought that I had been molested, thought that someone had raped me, thought that someone had convinced me to be gay, thought that family members had done things to me that had convinced me. They ended up sending me to treatment facilities, ended up sending me to counseling, all of this stuff where people just basically told me, "You're not gay, you're just confused, just give it some time, you're only 14. They basically told me that I need to have sex with girls, that I need to fool around with girls, that I need to look at, they told my dad that they told me that I need to talk to my dad and convince him to let me look at heterosexual pornography so that it would convince me and that it wouldn't, they said I just haven't had the right woman yet. And of course at this time I was like 14 years old, 15 years old by the time all this was happening, and I was just miserable. I didn't, So after all this, I actually did attempt suicide, and my purpose was to kill myself, unlike the first time. So I did attempt suicide. I believe my sister was the one that caught me. But yeah, I had attempted suicide, and that's pretty much the end of, the terrible, sad coming out story. And that was all in 2004. From there, I graduated in 2008. So pretty much for the next 4 or 5 years, it continued. I still get crap from people when I go home, because they're not used to it. I'm much more confident now. When I moved to Memphis, I came out again because I had actually planned on not coming out when I came to Memphis because I was like, oh, well, I'm not really gay. I'm straight. I just have to convince people that I'm straight. I'm gonna find a girlfriend in Memphis. I'm gonna have a family, have some kids, and live a very normal life. And that's not what I want. And I realized that I tried to join a fraternity for the purpose of appearing more straight, and it was just such a big charade. I was doing a wonderful job as an actor, but I didn't like it. I hated it. So I came out again in Memphis. Everyone handled it extremely well. I got so much support from everyone. And now I'm here now. I've started Bobby's Haven. I volunteer at our Memphis Gay and Lesbian Community Center. I do drag. Um, it's just so much fun, and I love living life. And if there's anything that I can say to those of you that have just come out, oh, sorry, I'm sitting on my knee, so I have to readjust. Oh my gosh, my video is so long. To those of you that are just coming out, don't quit, don't give up. Life is too good. It may be bad now. Coming out may seem like it sucks, and you would be like, I can't do this. I'm gonna kill myself. I just can't. Don't give up, because there are people out there like myself that love you guys, and that I'm here to support you and I'm here to help you. So yeah, I'm really sorry that this video is so long, but I feel like it needs to be. Someone just rang our doorbell. Who is that? But anyhow, until next week, I love you guys. If you have any questions, or if you want to know more about my story in depth, let me know. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. I'll put information in the description box. But I love you guys. Stay true to yourself, and remember, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love anybody else? Quoted by RuPaul. Got to put that in there. Bye, guys.